joined by the MLA for District 5, Mermaid-Stratford, a member of the Green Party caucus in the legislature, Miss Michele Beaton. How are you today, Michele?
Great, Sam, and great, Blake. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. In fact, you are representing an area that's very close. In fact, I guess it probably would be the riding that I grew up in. So it's great to have somebody representing my former homestead on. Now, Michele, I know you from the Alexander area. I know your family well, but you're not somebody that I kind of seen very active in politics up until your, election in the recent election. Tell us a little bit about your journey to enter political life and how it's been representing your constituents over this past year.
Sure, thank you. So I think there's usually a trigger that gets you to become involved. And I would have to say one of the many triggers for me would have been the school review. I'm a firm believer that when you ask for public engagement and you get that public engagement, you need to value that. And so I participated in all of those meetings, the public presentations, and I didn't feel like the outcome was what was being discussed at those public presentations. So I guess comes down to, if you want to make a change, you need to be part of the process. And over that next year, I kind of went through, what does that look like for me? And after I looked at the different parties, where I fit for sure, my values was with the Green Party.
Let's say, that this is exactly the reason why people should seek public engagement and representation. And I commend you for taking this on. Now, it's been a busy year. The whole lot has happened, including you're now the official opposition. You've just survived COVID, which was a kind of an unprecedented, event that nobody kind of anticipated. How has that been? And tell us a little bit about your time in legislature, because you've also had a pretty big impact on the legislative environment as well.
Yeah, I mean, in that first year, there was a lot of learning, right? We had to learn how to bring motions forward, what are bills, talking to people to see what's important to the public and what do they want to see brought forward. Did a lot of committee work in that first year, which is really where my bill, the amendment to the Auditing Act, kind of started in its initial stages and then made its way out of the standing committee to a recommendation to the Legislative Assembly, and now is a piece of legislation, which is exciting. It shows that connection between how our standing committees work with our Legislative Assembly. So there's been a learning process, but I have to say it's been something that I've loved doing. I love my work in public accounts, and yeah, it's just to actually be able to invoke change is something that is a privilege that we're given by sitting in this office or in this chamber. And so I'm proud to be there. And I thank my constituents for helping me get here and putting me here.
Definitely. And you're the first exchange guest ever to be sitting right in the legislature as we speak to you. So that's pretty cool too. One thing, the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of changes just in terms of the emergency measures from COVID in the legislature, but also newer things. So we have a new Auditor General. And like you just mentioned, Don, that you believe in financial accountability. So now you put forward a bill that kind of give the Auditor General a little more duties and a little more free roam to actually do his or her job and audit the government. So do you want to kind of give us a step-by-step explanation of how that bill came forward and how it now is passed the legislation?
Yeah, I can for sure. So where we became aware of Follow the Dollar is by attending a convention. It's the CPAC convention. So it's public accounts, committee members are there. The Auditor General, clerks of the legislature attend. And one of the segments was on Follow the Dollar and the benefit of accountability of public funds after it leaves government. And so after speaking to the previous Auditor General while we were there, and the Vice Chair, Corey Deagle, who attended that conference as well, it was something that we realized we didn't have and that would be beneficial. So we brought that back as a topic for the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. And so we were able to consult on that and really look at other jurisdictions and what they do. And I value the Office of the Auditor General, and I firmly believe that it's an office full of integrity and public trust, and um, that needs to be held close, and giving them the powers that they need in order to really look at all public dollars. I think that that's important, and this legislation will allow all of those dollars to be assessed if the Auditor General thinks that it needs to go further. So it is discretionary.
So I guess fundamentally, as a person who sees the debt that the government's accumulating and is a contributor to those public coffers through taxes, I'm sensitive to what the public dollar, where it goes and how it's dispensed. As a business person, is there any concern or has been concern about the reach that the auditor might have into the private sector? So I think if funds are being appropriately used, that should not be a concern, but has there been any pushback on that point of the legislation?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussion on that. It's not the intent of this legislation to give carte blanche access to a company's auditable books or full books. When the Auditor General does an audit, it's got a very clear scope. And when there is something that doesn't match, and if they feel like they need to go further, it allows them to go further within that scope. And so it really, I look at this as being beneficial to companies that receive government funds, because it gives them accountability. And when the Auditor General comes out and says that the funds that were received by a company or a corporation are used in the way that it was intended and that it was applied for in the first place, I think that that gives that company a lot of credibility.
Good message to make sure you use public sector funds the way in which they're intended.
Well, I can tell you, Blake, so when I was campaigning, a lot of times I heard people say, where's my money going? Why am I paying all these taxes and I'm not getting the services that I should be getting, or we don't get anything for it? And so it's not always easy for government to reduce the amount of taxes, but what government can do is ensure that that tax money is being used in an efficient way. And to provide any kind of accountability that is not already present, I think that that benefits all islanders, because then we know for certain that the tax dollars are being used to the best interest of all islanders. So it helps everybody.
And like, I think when people see it in the news, they might be confused by what the bill means and what is it, the direct effects today that's going to happen. But I think this is more of a long-term bill. Like, we'll see it over time, that we'll say, oh, there's more scrutiny in where's this money going, what's happening. Like, it's not going to affect me right today, but in 5, 10, 15 years, you're going to realize, oh, wow, like, we've been able to see exactly where money has gone and who's been maybe overfunded or underfunded because of it.
Well, and possibly, and like I said, it is discretionary, but you're right, Sam. I mean, when it comes down to it, this is really about proper use of government funds. And, you know, I said here in the legislature when we were talking about it, transparency doesn't end with COVID. Good governance includes transparency. So in order to have effective governance, you also have to have transparency and accountability. And so that means identifying what the funds are being used for and having metrics and measures to ensure that the funds were used effectively. And it also shows too that if a program didn't work, then this would also allow us to take that back and say, here's how we can improve that program the next time if we need to use it. And you know, this COVID-19 response is really about creating a playbook that wasn't there before. So if we are going to create a playbook that's good for all islanders, we need to be open to suggestions and you know, the critical thinking of the Office of the Auditor General. Like they're not there to criticize, it's constructive criticism on how things could have done better. So I think that, yes, you're absolutely right. This goes past COVID-19, but we also want to make sure that, and that's why it was introduced in this sitting, that the Auditor General has the capabilities that they feel that they need. And if they need to invoke this, they can. It's another tool. And I think we should always provide the tools that if we've seen something happen in the past that wasn't, that didn't run smoothly, and we do have examples of that where the Auditor General had issues getting documentation and supporting facts that they were looking for. So if we've seen that happen before, we don't want it to happen again. So as legislators, it's our responsibility to bring forward changes so that we can make it different for the next time.
Congratulations on bringing forth a pretty important piece of legislation on your first session, your first time. And it's not common actually for opposition parties to bring forward legislation. Unanimous consent, so that's a great feather. And I think, as Sam suggested, this is a legislation that will probably long outlast all of us, and it'll be adapted and amended and enhanced over time, but it's an important piece of legislation. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled that it went through unanimously. It was one that came with a lot of questions, and that's what the oversight of this chamber is for. It's for us to be able to talk through different scenarios, how can it be used, and work together in order to provide good policy. And that's what this piece of legislation was. It was just good policy, and it will benefit Islanders for sure.
Well, we look forward to you and your colleagues in the House bringing forth more good policy that will benefit all Prince Edward Island. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we usually end off our questions with MLAs with what's your favorite part about being an MLA so far?
Oh my goodness. What is my favorite part? Do you know what my favorite part is? So being exposed to things that I've never been exposed to. So finding out about organizations that I never knew existed before. Talking to residents in my district that I may have never met before, or I might have known the daughter, I might have known the parents. But truly, the stories that Islanders share with you when you're an MLA it's a privilege. And to know that I have the ability to help them, that part is just unbelievably important to me, and I think that would be my favorite part, knowing things about this island that I never knew before. And when my day is done in this chamber, I will leave smarter, I will leave with more empathy, I will leave with more, just more, not respect, but more gratitude for the people that live in this province.
Well, we suspect you'll be there for a long time, so congratulations on your first piece of legislation passing, and we look forward to having you back in the exchange at some point in the future. Thanks for your time.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Blake.